Hi spooky friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I am bringing you another episode in the Monster Mash Chronicles. And today we are diving into the magical and mystical world of witches. And to do this, I am going to be talking about 4 enchanting witch books. So all 4 of these novels explore the witch archetype. They do that from different angles. So grab your broomsticks and let's fly into the world of witchcraft through the books The Last Witch of Scotland, The Coven, Cackle, and The Witches of Farda. These 4 books are going to be the center of this video. So let's go! So let's first begin with introductions to all 4 of the books. First up, we have The Last Witch of Scotland by Philip Paris. This book takes us back to the 18th century in Scotland during its final days of the witch hunts. And these witch hunts kind of ran from the 15th century all the way up to the 18th century. This is a narrowing story that is centered around a real life event, and it's based on the account of Janet Horne. She is the last woman to be executed in Scotland for witchcraft. This book, Philip Paris does bring to light that fear, the superstition and the brutality of the witch hunts. This is a historical fiction story, but it does bring back that underlying message of how powerful and dangerous this mass hysteria was back in those days. The Coven by Lizzie Fry. This is a more modern take on the witchcraft story, as it takes place in a more dystopian world where in the future witches are tried and killed for being a witch. This is a story that is about a group of women who have to band together to fight a global conspiracy which is aimed at eradicating witches in this dystopian world. So now we move to The Witches of Farda by Anya Bergman. This is a novel that is set in the 17th century in Norway, and it is based on the real witch trials that happened in the village of Farda. So the author in this story created and weaved together a very haunting tale, combining that with suspicion and betrayal, and also the strengths and bonds between women who are going through this situation. So like The Last Witch of Scotland, The Witches of Farda explores that historical side, but it delves into the mystical side of witchcraft, which explores the power of belief and strength that women have when they defy the odds. And finally, we have something a little bit lighter but so enchanting, which is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. This is a contemporary story that is centered around a witch, and it follows the story of Annie, who goes through a breakup, moves to a small town, and kind of befriends this mysterious woman called Sophie, who might be a witch. So unlike the other books, Cackle delves deeper into the whimsical, more fantastical side of witchcraft, where it's about the more modern Wicca side, where it's about female self-empowerment. The magic comes from embracing who you are, and even if that means embracing your inner witch. So now let's discuss my thoughts on the 4 books. The Last Witch of Scotland was a very interesting look into the world that it was back in the day, as this does follow a historical account, fictionized, about the last woman who was executed in Scotland. There's not a lot known about this, so it is very much created, it's all made up with kind of hints of realism in here. But it was an enjoyable read. It was definitely an interesting take on how women were prosecuted. It is a pretty slow read, and you do have to kind of persevere through. There's parts of this story that kind of get boring. So it does get a bit boring in probably the beginning, and then near the end it does pick up and it becomes a really good read. So yeah, that is my thoughts on The Last Witch of Scotland. The Coven for me was really boring. I didn't really enjoy this book whatsoever. I'm giving it like a 1-star rating because it was so slow and there's a lot of different characters in here, and there's a lot of things to kind of remember, follow, and get to grips with, especially as it is a dystopian world. But it does have that sense of female empowerment, banding together to fight an evil. So it is an interesting read, but not one that I would enjoy. And then with The Witches of Farda, I really enjoyed this book. This was incredible. I loved how stronger they got together when things were going wrong. So it was very compelling, and I really loved the writing style in here as well. There are elements and themes that probably wouldn't actually happen. Same with The Last Witch of Scotland, because these are set around real events, but they are fictionalized. There are certain themes that probably wouldn't actually happen in real life, such as like standing up and fighting back in the trial, that you just usually wouldn't happen, because you would be tried as well. But other than that, I thought this was a really strong, powerful story and had all of the makings of a very good witchy book. And finally, my thoughts on Cackle. I adore this book. I love Rachel Harrison's writing. This one is so incredible. It delves deep into the more modern side of witchcraft and being yourself and kind of doing everyday things to embrace your inner witch. And it's a very cute contemporary story, and I really loved that. I'm now going to move into the theming and my analysis of each of the 4 books. So across all 4 of these books, I noticed a similar theme, which was the exploration of power. How it's feared, how it's expressed, or celebrated within the context. In The Last Witch of Scotland and The Witches of Farda, we see the consequences of that fear. Both of these historical novels remind us of the real women who suffered because of societal fears and hysteria, and how people just didn't want women to have power. So they are haunting and powerful, but both of these stories send a message that is definitely needed about the dangers of ignorance and a fear and the superstition around fearing women and their power. So these books definitely have those types of themes. The Coven brings back that fear in a more modern sense, where women are still being hunted and killed for being a witch. This is a story that centers around a sisterhood, a resistance, and a reclaiming of power in a dystopian world. And then we have Cackle, that shows us a world where witches are accepted, where it's something that shouldn't be feared, it should be embraced. It can be celebrated, it can bring joy, and it's about learning that the power that you need and that magic is within you. All 4 of these books explore the theme of power in different ways, and that is a common thread throughout all of these books. Witches have always been a powerful symbol in media, which sometimes represents the strength, wisdom, and sometimes fear that comes with being different. All 4 of these novels remind us that a witch is more than just a figure of fantasy. She's a reflection of the struggles and triumphs of women throughout history. So whether you're into the dark and historical, or the thrilling and dystopian, or the whimsical and empowerment, there's a witchy read for everybody. Each of these 4 books offers a different perspective on what it means to be a witch. So whether that's fighting for survival, challenging societal norms, or just finding magic in everyday life, they are such great books to read, especially if you're into the female experience, learning our history, and exploring that sense of power and how people are usually afraid of women in power. So I really loved reading these stories, delving into the witchy vibes and kind of pulling out those similar threads, which do center around power more than anything else. I do think there is a read for everybody, and if you haven't explored the witchcraft and the witchy world, which book would you pick up? Let me know in the comments your thoughts on these 4 books if you've read them. So with that, I am going to end out this video, so do like and subscribe if you did enjoy this, and if you want to come back for the final installment in the Monster Mash Chronicles. So until next time, keep your pages turning and embrace the darkness. Blessed be. Bye.